Hello, dear viewer. It's been a while since I've had a story on my channel. Yes, I've noticed that too. But I'm getting back to the old pace and will be delighting you with new, interesting, and sometimes exciting stories. Also, many people forget to put a like after watching. So please put a like and subscribe to the channel in advance so I can see your feedback, although it is already very strong. Thank you all for your support. And here we go. A difficult patient. Full story. In her 19 years, Liv Miller had never been to a doctor's appointment. It wasn't surprising, since Liv had grown up with an Uncle Oliver who was pretty useless when it came to educating Liv. Now, however, she was in the full bloom of her life, and after a quick trip to the campus nurse, the girl had been recommended to get a full checkup with a real doctor. That's how she ended up here, sitting on the padded examination table. It was awkward. Liv had never been in a doctor's office like this before, and it felt very strange. The wide strip of protective paper crunched loudly every time Liv hung up the phone. Mostly she just kept her nose out of the phone, except when she talked to the nurse and told her what was going on. So far, things were going well. It was just a routine doctor's appointment like any other. "Miss Miller, it's nice to meet you. I'm Dr. Boss. I'll be performing your exam today," Liv heard the voice, and looked up from the phone to see the man who was closing the door. Oh no. The doctor in front of her was not what she expected. When Liv had made the appointment, Dr. Lewis, an older man, had invited her in. Not this handsome blonde-haired guy who was looking at a clipboard, pulling up a round rolling chair and sitting down. The only things that indicated his age were the deep smile wrinkles on his face and the slight gray in his thick blonde hair. Liv placed the phone next to her on the examination table and squeezed the top of her gown slightly. The nurse tucked her back in. Dr. Boss looked up from his clipboard and smiled politely at Liv. "What brings you here today?" "Where is Dr. Lewis?" asked Liv, averting her gaze from the man. Her face was neutral and expressed no emotion, except for a slight blush on her cheeks that was impossible to contain. Dr. Boss walked over to the counter, put down the clipboard, and opened a drawer to pull out gloves. "Unfortunately, Dr. Lewis had an emergency, and I'm seeing his patients for the rest of the day. Is that okay with you? Or would you prefer to reschedule your appointment with him?" The man took the gloves in his hands, but didn't put them on just in case. Liv thought about it only for a moment, deciding she was talking nonsense. Sure, her doctor was attractive, and he was about to see a side of her that no other doctor had ever seen. Hell, no man had ever seen what he was about to see. "No," she finally answered. "It's okay." Not only did she feel like she was being stupid, but she didn't have time for doctor's appointments. Liv had classes and work, so carving out time was very difficult. Good. Dr. Boss walked over to the sink and began washing his hands, drying them well before putting on his gloves. Liv didn't know why she was paying attention, but he wasn't wearing a ring. "So, do you have any concerns? Or are you just here for a routine checkup?" The nurse had already taken all this information, but Liv was used to it by now. Even at the family doctor's office, she had to repeat herself. "Damn, this is going to be awkward. I noticed that the last time I was with a guy, I couldn't relax, I guess." Liv blushed even more. "That's never happened to me before, so I talked to my roommate about it. She advised me to talk to the nurse on campus, and then they told me to make an appointment here," she explained. She heard Dr. Boss hum quietly, as if pondering. "I see. Have you ever seen a doctor before?" he asked, sitting down directly in front of the woman, blocking her view of the poster. Liv shook her head, only then noticing that she was still holding onto the neck of her robe, and her palm was even beginning to sweat. "Okay, just relax," the doctor said in a soothing tone. The first thing he did was to run his fingers through the area, applying a little pressure. "I'm going to start with an exam. It's important that you have it annually, and that you do it yourself every couple of weeks," Dr. Boss explained. As confident as Liv was, she still felt rather self-conscious. Being under the harsh, unforgiving light of the sterile room wasn't helping at all. The doctor didn't seem to notice anything, or at least he didn't care. It was his job after all, and Liv didn't know why she was so nervous. His large gloved hands concentrated on the examination. Liv couldn't look. She had to turn away to feel the doctor's fingers pressing down on her sides first. When you do it yourself, you're mostly looking for bumps. But if you feel anything abnormal, don't hesitate to call the office. Liv felt him lean in slightly. Her sensations were only making things worse. She noticed the doctor pause for a moment, moving her long black hair out of the way. While the doctor worked, Liv tried to concentrate on the many diagrams and posters on the walls. She did read them, doing her best to distract herself from her thoughts, but it was quite difficult. Still, she fell silent as her heart began to race. She felt good, too good for what was to come. A little footnote. This little snippet I had to cut out. What the hell? Liv shrieked, her hand automatically rising and pushing the doctor behind her forehead, tangling his perfectly styled hair slightly. Instead of getting angry, Dr. Boss laughed. "Relax, Miss Miller," he said in a completely professional tone. Her eyes were wide open, her eyebrows narrowed, but her cheeks were flaming. The doctor reached out his hands to her arms, rubbing them very gently. "You told me you were in trouble. I'm just trying to make sure you are." Liv didn't change her face after his reasoning. "You expect me to believe that?" she asked sharply. For the longest time, she managed to look Dr. Boss in the face. She watched him smile almost playfully. "Who the hell does this guy think he is?" thought she, pulling away from him slightly. "Well, if I may, I'd be interested to see if it works." His voice was calm, steady, and confident. If it was possible, Liv blushed even more. "It's called a doctor," she snarled. "Do you do that to all your patients?" "No. I don't want 19-year-old female college students saying things like that to me." The doctor's playful smile turned into a smirk. She found the doctor very attractive, and what he was doing was effective. And though Liv was sure it was many times over, she allowed herself to relax. "Good girl." His deep voice irritated Liv. Liv closed her eyes. "It seems to have worked very well," Dr. Boss said softly. "I think I figured out what the problem was," said the blonde man. "You've dated young guys around your age, right?" asked Dr. Boss, getting up from his stool and walking over to the desk to pull a small lever that raised the back of the desk to a 120-degree angle. "They're too selfish. They don't understand what you need." The doctor turned back to her, removed his gloves, and tossed them into the trash can. Then he reached forward and pressed lightly on Liv's shoulder to get her to lie on her back. "I bet none of them could even get you to the right consistency, could they?" Liv pressed her back against the crumpled paper, listening to him. "No," she replied, watching the doctor extend the stirrup at the end of the table. Taking her ankle, he placed her foot on the brace, and then did the same with the other. "That's too bad," Dr. Boss said. Liv was young, but she knew it was morally wrong, maybe even illegal. But it had gone so far, not to mention. It was pretty cool. There was something about this situation that really suited the girl. Besides, it was unlikely that she would ever get the opportunity to do so. "I think that would be nice," Liv said. Liv was slender. However, it was kind of scary to be like that now. Every time Liv was with someone else, it all happened in the dark. "You're gorgeous," Dr. Boss said softly. Liv watched him. Somehow, Dr. Boss managed to make her feel valued, even though his actions were a complete mess. Dr. Boss was paying a lot of attention to her. Liv closed her eyes to truly savor the moment. "Well, there you go," the doctor hummed proudly. "I bet the others have never cared for you like this." He smirked. Dr. Boss walked over and opened a drawer, pulling out a metal tool. Liv raised her eyebrows. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing something that looked like a medieval torture device. "What are you going to do with it?" said Liv. Dr. Boss looked around and chuckled. He pulled a stool under him and sat down in front of Liv again. "It's a special device," he told her. "And it doesn't hurt. I have to perform this procedure to make sure you're okay, Miss Miller. Besides, not completing the examination would raise a lot of suspicion. No need to worry. I'll make sure there isn't the slightest discomfort." Liv wasn't sure it was all that necessary. It looked painful as hell, but she agreed. "Good girl," Dr. Boss smiled. "Now lower yourself to the edge," he told her as he watched her follow his instructions. "Just don't strain yourself," the doctor instructed. Liv wasn't sure how to feel about that, but his constant attention to her helped a lot. "Relax, this will only take a second." Of course, Liv couldn't see what he was doing. "All done," Dr. Boss stated politely. Liv shuddered at the sensation as the doctor went to put the instruments away, setting them aside to tidy him up later. When the doctor turned around and looked at her, his gaze softened slightly. "You are very beautiful, Miss..." "Liv!" She cut him short as the man walked over to her and gently tucked some long hair behind her ear. Dr. Boss admired her face for a while. "Liv," the man repeated, and she was sure her name had never sounded so good. "Then call me Evan," he said, and leaned in to kiss her. Liv could have sworn she felt fireworks erupt. Unfortunately, it didn't last long at all before Evan pulled away and sat back on his stool. "Okay, Liv, I'm starting," he told her. "I need you to keep your voice down." This bit of text I also had to cut, but I'll make a small remark that we have all the stories without such cuts on Patreon, and the link is in the description. Moving on, Liv's eyes flew open, and she was numb with horror. "Did I..." She sat up quickly and looked down. "It's okay, Liv," Evan laughed softly, seeing the worry on her face. "It's perfectly normal," he told her, as he went to get paper towels, checking the time on his smartwatch. "It took a little longer than I planned, but it'll be fine," the doctor said, as he started to clean himself up. Liv slid off the table, grabbed a paper towel, and wiped herself down with it. She put on a simple gray cotton knee-length dress with short, cooling sleeves. When Liv was completely ready to leave, she noticed Evan was just finishing washing his hands in the sink. "You have a lovely dress," he commented as he wiped his clean hands and approached her. He dug into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. "Here, take my card," Dr. Boss said, holding out the wallet to her. It was like any other card a doctor gives, but this one also had his personal number on it. "I'd like to see you again somewhere less official place." There was a hint of laughter in his words. "Contact me if you'd be interested in dinner, or perhaps drinks." The last thing Liv expected was for her doctor to ask her out. But of course, the whole situation was unpredictable from start to finish. Tucking her hair behind her ear, she held her gaze on the small photograph of the handsome Dr. Evan Boss. Liv already knew she would contact him. How could she not? Dear viewers, we have gone through a difficult and exciting story, which, by the way, has already been released on our Patreon in its full version, the story of Liv and her meeting with Dr. Boss. Our heroes seem to have found each other in the most unexpected circumstances. There are many aspects to see through this twist, from their need for care and attention to their struggles with inner doubts and fears. We saw Liv struggling with her feelings and feeling conflicted between professional ethics and personal emotions. The situation she found herself in may look ostensibly appealing and even emotionally exciting, but behind it was deep psychological conflict and potentially dangerous consequences. This story is a reminder that the boundaries between professional and personal must be respected not only for the sake of ethics, but also for one's emotional well-being. Liv's story shows us that sometimes the lines can become too blurred, and this is an important message for all of us. We must guard our boundaries and distinguish real feelings from fleeting illusions. The psychology of attraction and power in such circumstances speaks volumes. The importance of consenting and managing the long-term consequences of the decisions we make is more than obvious. As another note, let me remind you that a complete but unedited version of this story is already available on our Patreon. Thank you for your attention to our series, and if you'd like to learn more and dive into the story uncensored, visit us there. The link is in the video description. Thank you for being with us throughout this incredible story. Remember that images and words can carry different meanings, and not everything that seems romantic or enticing is necessarily so in real life. Be vigilant and respect yourself and your boundaries. All the best to you, and see you again in our next videos.